My daughter came home from family time crying and said Grandma locked her in the car because she was embarrassing. She sat there for 3.5 hours in the heat while they ate at a restaurant. I canceled every payment and filed charges. Now they're begging. My family locked my 8-year-old daughter in the car because she misbehaved while they ate at some restaurant. So I decided to teach them a hard lesson. Grab some snacks and listen to this show. Before anything, let me give you some background. Name's Ray, 36 male. And I've been bankrolling my family for 9 straight years. Every month, $3,800. Mortgage on their 4-bedroom house in Mesa, utilities, 2 car payments, insurance, health, insurance, gap coverage, internet and streaming, cell phones, and random emergencies fund. I work as a logistics coordinator for a regional shipping company. Pull in around $87,000 a year. Enough to live comfortably. Enough to help family without completely destroying myself. Or so I thought when this started. I was 27 when Mom called about being short on the mortgage. Financial advisor made some mistakes. Bad investments. Could I help just this once? Just until they got things sorted out. 9 years later, temporary is still going strong. Total contributed $410,400 plus the actual random emergencies. The roof, the AC unit, the medical bills, always urgent, always my problem. And in 9 years not once have they said thank you. Nothing but silence and expectations and occasional complaints that I was late on a payment. My sister Katie lives 10 minutes from them. 2 years younger, married to Mike, who works in pharmaceutical sales. 2 kids. Haley is 10, Ethan is 8. My parents treat those kids like royalty. Every event becomes a production. Every accomplishment gets broadcast to the family group chat. The walls at Mom and Dad's house look like a shrine to Katie's perfect family. I've got a kid too. Maya, she's 8. She's my daughter through and through. Even if her biological mom bailed when she was 5. The adoption was finalized before she was 2. Haven't heard from the biome since she left. So, I've been solo dad for 3 years. 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe. We've got our routine and it works. Made absolutely sure Mia knows she's loved and important. Except my parents treat her like she's invisible, like they're doing her a favor just showing up. They show up to events but leave early. One polite question about her life. Then immediately back to Haley's honor roll or Ethan's baseball stats. Maya's birthday last month was a perfect example. I rented a pavilion at the park, set up decorations, ordered her favorite cake, invited family and friends from school. My parents arrived an hour late. They stayed 23 minutes. Brought a clearance aisle gift still marked down 40%. Left before we sang happy birthday because they had dinner reservations with Katie's family. Maya asked me later why they didn't stay for cake. I told her they had something important. It's been like this since Maya was born. Colder interactions, shorter visits, forgotten promises. Meanwhile, Haley gets a tablet for her birthday. Ethan gets trips to Legoland. When I suggested Maya could join them on one of those trips, Mom actually laughed. Said it was a special time just for Katie's kids. Said it like I should know better, like I should understand that Maya wasn't special enough. My kid never complains. She's got this sweet personality that kills me. Shy around new people, but opens up when she feels safe. Obsessed with marine biology. Knows every ocean animal. Reads books about coral reefs and deep-sea creatures. Gets straight A's. Helps me fold laundry without being asked. Sets the table before dinner. The kind of kid who apologizes when she sneezes too loud. I love her more than anything in this world. Would burn everything down to protect her. Which is exactly what I was about to do. Because that Saturday at 5 p.m., Maya came through my door crying. Deep sobs that came from somewhere real and painful. Maya's footsteps were wrong when she came in. Usually she's got this bounce, this energy comes through the door talking. About whatever happened during family time with Grandma and Grandpa. Not Saturday. She walked in slow and heavy. Dropped her backpack like it weighed 100 pounds. Stood in the entryway staring at nothing. Her face was red and blotchy. I was on the couch reviewing some logistics reports for work. Monday morning meeting prep that could have waited. I dropped the tablet the second I saw her face. Maya, what's wrong? The words came out between sobs. Broken up. Grandma made me wait in the car. My blood went cold. What do you mean wait in the car? She said I was embarrassing them. Maya wiped her face with both hands, but the tears kept coming. She made me sit in the car for 3.5 hours while everyone else ate at the restaurant. It was so hot, Dad. I couldn't breathe, right? The windows were up because she said if I opened them, the car might get broken into. I drank all my water in the first hour. I was so thirsty and hot and scared. 3.5 hours in September in Phoenix, where the inside of a car becomes an oven, even with the sun going down. What did you do that embarrassed them? I kept my voice level, but inside I was seeing red. Something was boiling, rewiring, becoming something harder and colder, and completely done with this. Maya looked at her shoes, the guilty look of a kid who thinks this is somehow her fault. We were at the restaurant and I asked the waiter a question about the fish on the menu. I wanted to know what kind it was because we've been learning about different species in school. Haley laughed really loud and said I was being weird, that nobody cares about fish. Grandma got this look on her face. She told me I was causing a scene, that I needed to learn when to be quiet. She said I was making everyone uncomfortable and I needed to go wait in the car until I learned how to behave in public. 3.5 hours for being curious and interested, and exactly the kind of kid any decent person would be proud of. I pulled her into a hug. She buried her face in my shoulder and cried until my shirt was soaked. I held her and felt this absolute certainty about what needed to happen next. Go get cleaned up, kiddo, I said quietly. Change into comfortable clothes. I'll order us pizza. She nodded and headed to her room. I waited until I heard her door close. Then I grabbed my keys and wallet and walked out. The drive to my parents' house took 17 minutes. Saturday evening traffic on the 202. They live in one of those neighborhood developments that all look the same. Desert beige houses with rocky yards and 2-car garages. Retired people paradise. The kind of place you can afford when your son pays all your bills. I parked on the street. Their driveway had both cars in it. Katie's SUV was there too. Perfect. The whole family gathered for their usual Saturday evening together. I walked up to the front door and tried the handle, unlocked as always. Walked right in. They were in the living room. Dad in his recliner watching golf. Mom on the couch with her novel. Katie and Mike on the love seat looking at something on Mike's phone. Haley and Ethan on the floor with iPads. Everyone looked up when I walked in. Ray? Mom was confused. We weren't expecting you. Is something wrong? I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, pulled up the recurring payments page, the one I'd set up 9 years ago, and barely looked at since. All those automatic withdrawals that made it easy not to think about how much I was giving. I started canceling them one by one. Each tap felt good. Katie stood up. What are you doing? I didn't answer. Just kept tapping. Cancel. Confirm. Cancel. Confirm. Dad's phone buzzed. Then Mom's, both of them checking notifications at the same time. Both of them going pale as they read their screens. Son, Dad's voice had an edge to it now. What are you doing? I pocketed my phone. Maya sat in your car for 3.5 hours today, in the heat without water because she asked a question about fish. Silence. That's Mom started. That's not what happened. Really? I looked at Katie. You were there. Tell me what happened. Katie had this look on her face, defensive and annoyed. Maya was being inappropriate. Mom had to correct her behavior by locking her in a car. She wasn't locked in, Mom said quickly. She chose to wait there. She's 8. She was being disrespectful, Katie added. Her voice had that pitch that made me want to walk out immediately. She was showing off, making everything about her. Haley was embarrassed. I looked at Haley, staring at her iPad, pretending not to hear any of this. Then at Ethan, doing the same thing. Both of them trained not to question their parents. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice dead calm. Every payment I've been making stops. Today, right now. You've got about 2 weeks before the mortgage payment bounces. 3 weeks before utilities get shut off, your car insurance lapses end of the month. Your cell phones disconnect when the billing cycle ends. You're on your own. Dad stood up fast. You can't do this. I just did. We're your parents. Mom said, her voice was shaking now. You owe us. I owe you. I laughed cold and bitter. I've given you over $410,000 over 9 years. I don't owe you anything. You owe me. You owe me those 9 years. You owe Maya an apology. You owe her basic human decency, but you won't give her that. So, I'm done giving you anything. Katie stepped forward. You're being dramatic. She sat in a car for a few hours. She's fine. Get out of my way, Katie. No. She crossed her arms. You're not just going to walk in here and move. Make me. She stepped closer, blocking the doorway. You think you're so much better than us? Think you can just destroy everything because your feelings got hurt? Maya sat in a car for 3.5 hours. And she's fine. Kids are tougher than you think. But you wouldn't know that because you cuddle her. You make her weak. I looked at Mom and Dad both sitting there letting Katie speak for them. Letting her defend this. 9 years of payments, and this was what I got. This was what they all thought of me. I walked around Katie headed for the door behind me. Dad was shouting something about responsibility. Mom was crying. Katie was yelling about being selfish. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. Didn't look back. Didn't feel guilty. Got home at 6:40 p.m. Maya was in the living room. She'd set up her art supplies on the coffee table. Drawing something with colored pencils. My kid creating art while I just blown up our entire family structure. Did you order pizza? She asked, without looking up from her drawing. Not yet. What do you want on it? Can we get half cheese, half pepperoni? You got it. I ordered online while standing in the kitchen. Added breadsticks and that dessert pizza she likes. Made it a celebration, even though I was still shaking with anger inside. Maya went back to her drawing. I sat on the couch and looked at my phone. 23 missed calls by 7:00 p.m., 15 text messages, all from the family. I read them while Maya drew, each one more desperate and angry than the last. Mom, Ray, please, we need to talk about this. Dad, call me immediately. This is unacceptable. Katie, you're throwing a tantrum. Grow up. Mike, hey man, maybe let's all cool down and talk tomorrow. Katie again. Mom's crying. Are you happy now? You always have to be the victim. Always have to make everything about you. The messages went on. A mix of guilt trips, demands, manipulation tactics that had probably worked for years. Might have even worked this time if I hadn't seen my daughter's face when she walked through that door. I ignored them all. Then I opened my banking app and reviewed what I'd done. Everything was in motion. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, car payments, cell phones, all scheduled for cancellation. 9 years of autopay destroyed in under 10 minutes. Pizza arrived at 7:30. Delivery driver handed it over with a smile. As we ate together, Maya told me about her drawing, told me about the book she'd been reading about the Great Barrier Reef, about coral bleaching and ocean acidification, and how she wanted to help fix it somehow when she grew up. I listened, and asked questions and made appropriate impressed sounds. Pretended I wasn't mentally planning the next steps of completely cutting my parents out of our lives. Pretended I wasn't already thinking about lawyers and restraining orders, and making sure they could never hurt her again. After dinner we watched a documentary about ocean conservation. Maya fell asleep on the couch halfway through, her head on my shoulder. I carried her to bed. This kid deserved better. Deserved grandparents who cared, who saw how special she was, who celebrated her curiosity instead of punishing it, who didn't lock her in cars like unwanted luggage. I went back to the living room and pulled out my laptop, started documenting everything, every payment with dates and amounts, every incident where they'd treated Maya poorly. Every time they'd chosen Katie's kids over mine, the anger came in waves. By midnight, I had 9 years of financial records organized in spreadsheets with color-coded categories. By 1 a.m., I had screenshots of text messages going back years. Conversations where they'd asked for money, where they'd promised to pay me back someday, where they'd guilt-tripped me into covering just one more thing. I had a timeline of incidents that painted a very clear picture of favoritism and emotional neglect. The Christmas where Mia's homemade ornament ended up in the trash. The summer they'd taken Haley and Ethan to Disneyland and said no when I asked if Mia could join. Pattern after pattern. It was the kind of documentation that would make any reasonable person say, yeah, cutting them off was the right call. Sunday morning came with more messages. 38 of them. I scrolled through while drinking coffee, enjoying the morning quiet. Mom, your father and I are scared. Please respond. Dad, the bank called. We're behind on the mortgage. Fix this now. Katie, Mom had to take medication because of the stress you're causing. I hope you're proud of yourself, Mike. Dude, this is getting out of hand. Your parents are freaking out. They'd had 9 years to perfect these tactics. 9 years of making me feel responsible for their well-being. 9 years of training me to jump when they needed something. I blocked all of them. Cleared my voicemail without listening. Deleted the family group chat. Removed them from my social media. Monday morning I dropped Maya at school like normal. Kissed her goodbye. Told her I loved her. Watched her walk into the building with her backpack. Somehow still smiling after everything. Then I drove downtown to the police station. Cutting off their money was step 1. Legal consequences was step 2. The front desk officer was a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a nameplate that read Gutierrez. She looked up from her computer when I approached. "I need to report child endangerment." I said that got her attention. She pulled out a form and a pen. "What happened?" I explained the situation. Maya locked in the car. 3.5 hours. September heat. No water. Gave specific times and locations. Mentioned that there were witnesses, all of them present when it happened. Officer Gutierrez wrote everything down. When I mentioned the 3.5 hours, she looked up sharply. "The vehicle was in direct sunlight." "Yes. Windows up." Officer Gutierrez's jaw tightened. She asked questions, verified information, took down my contact details and Maya's information. When I finished, she looked at me seriously. "This is criminal child endangerment under Arizona statute. I need to file a report and pass this to detectives. They'll follow up with you within 48 hours. What happens then? They'll interview your daughter, get her statement, interview witnesses if possible. If they find enough evidence, they'll submit charges to the county attorney's office for prosecution." I gave her my contact information, signed forms, received a case number. The whole process took 40 minutes. When I walked out, my phone was ringing. Unknown number. I answered anyway. "Ray, it's your mother." I hung up, blocked the number. The phone rang again immediately. Different unknown number. "Dad, this time Ray, listen to me. You need to stop this. The police called. They're investigating us for child endangerment." "That's crazy. That's not what happened." "That's exactly what happened. Your mother made a mistake in judgment. That's all. We don't deserve to have police involved. Maya deserved not to be locked in a car, but here we are." I hung up. Blocked that number too. By Tuesday the calls were coming from numbers I didn't recognize. Friends of my parents, family, friends, distant relatives who suddenly cared about the situation. All of them with the same message. I was overreacting. I was destroying the family. I needed to fix this before it went too far. I ignored every single one. Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from Detective Collins. He asked if I could bring Maya to the station for an interview. Said he'd have a child advocacy specialist present, that it would be gentle and age appropriate. Thursday after school, I took Maya downtown, explained that some people wanted to ask her about Saturday. She nodded and asked if I'd be there with her. I told her I'd be right outside. The interview took 45 minutes. When Maya came out, the advocacy specialist said she did great, that her statement was clear and consistent. Detective Collins walked me to my car. "Your daughter's story matches your report exactly. I'm recommending charges. The county attorney will make the final decision, but this is pretty straightforward. Your mother endangered a child through reckless disregard." I nodded. "There's something else you should know," Collins added. "Child Protective Services will be involved. They'll want to interview you and your daughter. Make sure she's in a safe environment." "She is. I believe you. But they have to verify. They'll probably visit your home, talk to her school, check references. Don't take it personally." "I won't." He handed me his card. "Call me if your family tries to contact you about this, especially if they try to pressure you into dropping the charges. That's witness tampering, and I'll add it to their problems." Friday morning my parents were formally charged. I know because Katie called from Mike's number. Screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You got Mom arrested. Your own mother. Do you understand what you've done? Your mother locked my daughter in a car for 3.5 hours. She made a mistake. Then she can explain that to a judge. This is going to ruin her life. She could go to jail, Ray." "Jail? Good." Katie made a sound somewhere between a scream and a sob. "You're evil. You're actually evil. Maya sat in that car crying and scared while you all ate dinner and laughed. But I'm evil." "Sure." I hung up. That afternoon, I got an email from my dad. Subject line, "Please read." The email was long. Pages of justifications and explanations. How they didn't mean to hurt Maya. How it was just a few hours. How kids these days are too sensitive. How I was ruining their lives over nothing. How they'd already paid $3,000 to a lawyer. How I needed to drop the charges and restore the payments and fix this mess I'd created. Not once did he apologize for what they did to Maya. I blocked his email address. Saturday morning, 1 week after everything started, I woke up and checked my phone out of habit. No calls, no texts, no emails. Complete silence. It felt incredible. 2 weeks later, the mortgage payment officially bounced. I know because I got a text from my cousin forwarding messages from Katie. She'd sent a screenshot of the bank notification my parents received crying. Past due, late fees assessed, 30-day notice before foreclosure proceedings. 3 days after that, their utilities were shut off. Power, water, gas, all gone. They had to pay deposits and reinstatement fees to get them turned back on. Deposits they didn't have because they'd never built an emergency fund. Never needed one when their emergency fund was me. Daniel told me about it at work. His wife volunteers with my mom's theater group. Word travels. That's rough. Daniel said they had 9 years to budget properly. I said, fair point. Daniel was a good guy. Never judged. Just listened and occasionally passed along updates. Week 3, their car insurance lapsed. Both vehicles uninsured. Dad apparently didn't realize it immediately. Kept driving around uninsured for 4 days. Until he got pulled over for a broken taillight on his way to his hardware store job. The cop ran his information. No active insurance. Citation issued. $500 fine plus mandatory SR-22 filing for 3 years. SR-22 meant he'd have to prove financial responsibility to the state. Meant his insurance rates would triple when he eventually got coverage again. Daniel told me Dad tried to talk his way out of the ticket. Played the senior citizen card. Claimed he didn't know the insurance had lapsed. The cop didn't care. Rules are rules. Dad ended up having to call Katie to come pick him up because he couldn't legally drive the car home. Had to pay $150 for the tow to get it out of impound. Their cell phones disconnected day 29. The angry calls stopped. Knowing they were phoneless added some satisfaction. Your parents lost their house, Daniel told me one day in late October. We were at this taco place near the office. Good, I said. Daniel raised an eyebrow but didn't look surprised. That's cold, man. They locked my 8-year-old daughter in a car for 3.5 hours in Phoenix heat because she asked about fish. They took over $410,000 from me and never once said thank you. So, yeah, good. I hope the apartment they move into has paper-thin walls and noisy neighbors. Daniel nodded slowly, thinking it over. When you put it that way, yeah, fair enough. That's what I appreciated about Daniel. No speeches about family being everything or blood being thicker than water, or whatever people say when they don't understand the full situation. The foreclosure went through in November, about 90 days from the first missed payment to the final auction. The house had been heavily mortgaged with home equity loans for various things. The second I stopped paying, the whole thing collapsed. They moved into a small apartment in Scottsdale, 1 bedroom in a complex that looked like it was built in 1973 and hadn't been updated since. Maybe 600 square ft of depressing beige carpet and popcorn ceilings. The kind of place where college kids live with 3 roommates or elderly people go to die slowly. My parents at 69 years old, starting over in poverty housing because they never learned to live within their means. The apartment complex had a reputation too. Daniel mentioned he'd lived there briefly during his divorce. Said the walls were so thin you could hear neighbors sneeze. Said the parking lot got broken into regularly. Said the AC barely worked in summer. Perfect. Dad got a part-time job at a hardware store making $13 an hour. Mom started doing data entry from home for some sketchy company that probably barely classified as legal. Both of them working for the first time in 9 years. Katie apparently helped them move. Complained about it constantly, that I should have helped, that it was my fault. The irony was lost on Katie. She'd watched my daughter get locked in a car and said nothing. Daniel asked me about it over coffee one morning in early December. We were in the break room. Your sister's telling people you're heartless, that you abandoned your family when they needed you. My sister can tell people whatever she wants. I stopped caring about her opinion around the same time she suggested my daughter wasn't really mine. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. She said that her exact words were, "She's not even really your kid, that's messed up, that's Katie." Daniel shook his head. You don't care what they think. Not even a little bit. And I didn't. That was the surprising part. 9 years of caring too much. 9 years of trying to be the good son, the reliable brother, the person everyone could count on. Stopping was easy. Not caring felt like freedom. The criminal case moved forward through December. My mother hired a lawyer, some guy named Burton, who specialized in defending first-time offenders. He tried calling me twice, left voicemails that I deleted without listening. Sent an email through the county attorney's office asking if I'd be willing to drop the charges. Said it would help his client's case, that it would be better for everyone, including Maya, if we could resolve this privately. I called him back, told him to lose my number and stopped contacting me. That some things require official consequences. That his client should have thought about that before she locked a child in a vehicle. He tried to argue, started saying something about rehabilitation and how criminal records impact elderly people's lives. I hung up. The county attorney offered Mom a plea deal mid-December. Plead guilty to reckless endangerment. A Class 1 misdemeanor, instead of the Class 6 felony they'd originally charged. 18-month supervised probation. Mandatory parenting classes, even though she'd probably never be around a child unsupervised again. 200 hours community service. Written apology to Maya delivered through official channels. Restraining order preventing her from being alone with Mia for 3 years minimum. Her lawyer recommended she take it. Avoid trial, accept responsibility, and move on. Word got back to me that my mother cried for 2 days before signing. I felt nothing about it. Christmas was different this year. First one in 9 years without the obligatory family gathering at my parents' house. No awkward gift exchange, where Maya received generic clearance items, while Haley and Ethan opened expensive presents. Instead, it was just Maya and me. We put up a tree in our living room, decorated it together with ornaments we picked out at Target, played Christmas music, made hot chocolate with tiny marshmallows. Christmas morning, Maya woke me up at 6 a.m. like always. We sat by the tree and opened presents. I'd gone overboard this year. Marine biology books, a microscope for looking at water samples, art supplies, a wetsuit and snorkel set for when we went to California next summer. Clothes that actually fit. A new bike because she'd outgrown her old one. She opened each present with pure joy. "This is the best Christmas ever," she said, hugging a giant stuffed sea turtle. And it was because we weren't watching other kids get more attention, weren't leaving early so my parents could have their real celebration with Katie's family. We spent the day doing whatever we wanted. Watched movies, made cookies, built a massive coral reef diorama out of Lego bricks. Just us. Exactly how it should be. 3 days after Christmas I got a letter in the mail, legal letterhead, from my parents' attorney, a demand letter stating I owed them $410,400 in restitution for financial support that was allegedly promised. They were threatening to sue for repayment. I took the letter to my own attorney, guy named Alex, who my company kept on retainer for contract disputes. I explained the situation, showed him my documentation. Alex read through everything, the bank records, the text messages, the lack of any written agreements or promissory notes. "This is garbage," he said, tossing the letter onto his desk. "They have no case. Those were gifts. No court is going to force you to repay gifts, not without a written agreement. And based on your documentation, no such agreement exists. So, I don't need to worry about this. I'll draft a response telling them to kick rocks. If they actually file suit, which they won't, we'll get it dismissed immediately. They're just hoping you'll panic and send money. Not happening. Good. You're finally learning." He leaned back in his chair. "Between you and me, this is the most desperate money grab I've seen in months. They're broke and flailing. Happens all the time." I walked out of his office feeling light. January brought news. My parents were struggling. Dad hated his hardware store job. Mom's data entry barely paid anything. Katie had offered to help with some bills, but couldn't afford much. Not enough to replace what I'd been providing. "You know they're applying for assistance, right?" Daniel said one day, "like government assistance, food stamps and stuff. They spent 9 years living off my income, instead of budgeting properly." I said, "Now they get to see what actual poverty looks like." Harsh. What surprised me was how little I cared. I'd expected guilt, expected some small part of me to feel bad about their situation, to want to help even after everything. But there was no sympathy, no urge to fix their problems, just cold indifference. And satisfaction that they were finally experiencing consequences. February brought the court date for Mom's sentencing. Even with the plea deal, she had to appear before a judge. The judge would formally accept the plea, impose conditions, set the probation terms. I took the day off work, not to attend, just to be available if needed. The county attorney called me afterward, said everything went smoothly. My mother had pleaded guilty. The judge had accepted the deal. 18 months probation, parenting classes every Tuesday evening, community service on weekends, written apology to be delivered within 30 days. She cried on the stand, the prosecutor told me. Talked about how much she regretted it. How she loved her granddaughter. Did she mention the 9 years she treated my daughter like garbage? No. Just focused on this one incident. Typical. The written apology arrived 3 weeks later. 2 pages handwritten. My mother's shaky cursive on floral stationery. It was full of excuses and justifications wrapped in half-hearted regret. Sorry that things got out of hand. Sorry the situation escalated. Sorry I felt hurt, but never directly saying she was wrong. Never acknowledging the years of favoritism. I read it once, then I filed it in my folder with all the other documentation. Maya never saw it. She didn't need that manipulation in her life. March rolled in with warm weather and clear skies. Maya turned 9. We had a party at a trampoline park with her friends from school. No family invited, just kids jumping and laughing and eating pizza. It was perfect. At home that evening, after her friends left, Maya asked me something while we were cleaning up. "Dad, are Grandma and Grandpa ever going to say sorry?" "They sent a letter," I said carefully. "But it wasn't a real apology." "Oh," she thought about that while throwing away paper plates. "That's okay. I don't think I want to see them anyway." "Why not?" "Because they're mean. You always tell me I don't have to spend time with people who make me feel bad." "You're absolutely right," I said. "You don't have to see anyone who makes you feel bad, including them." She nodded, satisfied with that answer, and went to her room to play with her new toys. I stood in the kitchen thinking about how much easier life had become. Without the financial burden, without the emotional manipulation, that money I'd been sending them, now it went into Maya's college fund, into savings, into quality of life improvements, better apartment in a nicer neighborhood, good food, weekend trips, experiences and memories, instead of funding someone else's comfortable retirement. I took the $3,800 per month, and gave Maya the childhood she deserved. By April, Daniel reported that my parents had adapted to their new reality, both working full-time now, Dad at the hardware store. Mom had moved up to a better data entry company. They downsized further, got rid of 1 car, moved to an even cheaper apartment, learned to budget, learned to live within their means. Katie had apparently doubled down on her narrative, told everyone who would listen that I was terrible, that I'd abandoned family, that I should forgive and forget and restore the family. I heard this through various channels, mutual acquaintances, distant relatives who felt compelled to share. I didn't care. Katie could tell whatever story she wanted. The people who mattered knew the truth. One Saturday in May, I ran into Katie at the grocery store. Complete accident. I was in the produce section with Maya looking at apples. Turned around and there she was. Cart full of organic everything. Designer athleisure outfit, hair and nails done perfectly. Our eyes met. She looked like she wanted to say something. Her mouth opened. Then she looked at Maya and her expression changed. "Ray," she said finally. "Katie." She glanced around. Other shoppers nearby. "How have you been?" "Good. That's it. Just good. What do you want me to say?" She shifted her weight uncomfortable. "Mom's struggling. You know that, right?" Mia grabbed my hand. "Dad, can we go?" "Yeah, kiddo. We're done here." We walked past Katie without another word. Checked out, loaded groceries, drove home. Maya didn't mention it. Neither did I. June brought an unexpected visit from my dad. He showed up at my apartment on a Sunday afternoon. I answered the door and found him standing there looking older than I remembered, his hardware store uniform still on. "Ray, can we talk?" "No, please." 5 minutes. I looked back into the apartment. Maya was at a friend's house for a play date. No reason she needed to see this. "You've got 3 minutes," I said, not opening the door wider, not inviting him in. "I want to apologize." "You want me to restore the payments?" "No." He shook his head. "I mean, yes, we're struggling. But mostly I came to say I'm sorry. We were wrong. The way we treated Maya was wrong. The way we expected your help without appreciation was wrong. All of it." I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "You're sorry because you're broke. Not because you actually regret what you did." "That's not true." "It is true. You spent 9 years taking my money. You watched your wife lock my kid in a car. You did nothing. You said nothing. And now you're here because you need money, not because you care." He looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. "Time's up. Leave. Ray, leave now before I call the cops and tell them you're violating the restraining order." He left. Walked back to his old sedan. Drove away. I closed the door, and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no regret, no second thoughts. August marked nearly a year since this all started. 11 months since I walked into my parents' house and canceled every payment. 11 months since I chose my daughter over people who only valued me for my bank account. Best decision I ever made. We celebrated with a trip to San Diego. Spent 3 days at the beach and the aquarium. Maya snorkeled in the ocean for the first time. Saw real coral and real fish and came out of the water talking so fast I could barely understand her. On the last day, sitting on the beach watching sunset, she turned to me. Dad, yeah, thank you for being the best dad ever. I pulled her into a hug. Thank you for being the best daughter ever. And that was it. That was the whole story. I cut off toxic people who treated us like garbage. I pressed charges against someone who endangered my child. I walked away from a lifetime of being used and manipulated and undervalued. I chose self-respect. Katie can tell whatever story she wants. My parents can play victim to whoever will listen. I don't care. I've got my daughter. I've got my life back. I've got my money working for us instead of them. That's not revenge. That's knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. And honestly, it's the best thing I ever did. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.